Alrighty, good afternoon, YouTube. Adriel here, back with another quick movie review. This one is one of my also favorites. A lot of these movies are, but this is The Outsiders, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and a novel written by S.E. Hinton. Pardon me, you know how much I hate talking and yawning, but this movie stars C. Thomas Howell, Lowe, Patrick Swayze, Ralph Macchio, Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, Matt Dillon. Who else is in this? I know Diane Lane. And pretty much this movie is pretty much a coming of age tale. And takes place in 1966 in Oklahoma. And the first time I saw this, I saw it, of course, like every other, you know, American kid in middle school, and I really didn't catch on, how good the story was till like the second or third viewing, and I really related with the main characters, pretty much like with the OC, and of course, Captain America. I'm really the kind of guy that doesn't fit in, anywhere, and even in high school, of course, I related to that the most. The good thing is that I didn't get bullied or punked that much, but you still had a couple of assholes looming around. Like, the only time a kid like me would get any kind of recognition is if I did something outside of school and excelled in it, not within the school. So, of course, most people who are like, athletically gifted, they got more attention there. But how I felt about it is that, if you got attention on the outside, or some kind of recognition, that trumped all over high school popularity. But beyond that, I hung around a lot of people and I was, cool with a lot of them. Two in particular, they were, high school jocks, but they were still, kind of nerdish at the same time. And there's only two that I could think of. So, they flip flopped, and me personally, my favorite sports, were basketball and cross country. So and automobile racing and boxing. So but just like with high school, even in the story itself, you had the greasers and the socials. The greasers were like the poor kids. I think on the I think on the south side of Oklahoma or the Tulsa. I'm probably wrong about that because most time you hear South Side, you think of the hood anyway. Chicago South Side or even in Atlanta. And then you had the socials, which I think it meant social acolyte or something like that. But those are pretty much the rich kids. So the story is pretty much about Ponyboy Curtis, played by C. Thomas Howell, and you know uh, one particular night, after a movie, him and his friend get into an altercation with one of the greasers. They end up killing one of them, and they try to flee, go to the countryside before the story breaks out. Excuse me again. And the thing is that relating to the story into modern context, something's telling me, it's in a country, and of course, it's a bunch of white kids. That's probably the only social, difference. Yeah, that's pretty much there. But say if this situation was to happen here, I really believe that somebody had would have went to jail like for a long time, especially if it was murder and self defense, because in my opinion, depending on where you're at, 9 times out of 10, if it's a scandal or something big, no one really gives a shit about the details. And even going back on the OC, it was the same thing. Can't remember if I talked about it in that review, but what was it when it transitioned from like season 2 to 3, and when Marissa had saved her boyfriend's life by shooting his brother in the back because her brother was about to kill him, and then everyone at the school was tripping about her killing someone. To be honest, it did seem kind of stupid, but it went back to what I said, and even that quote, what I just said, you know, a scandal that big or something like that, no one cares about the fucking details, and that's even in our climate today. So, you can say whether it's an urban crime or if it's politics in general. So you know, most things presented to me from the media, I take it at like small face value, and it's even worse when you were actually there, or someone had told you the more detailed, stories, or a situation before the media got their hands on it and had flopped it in a certain way. So, but going back to the story, it is really a coming of age tale where it wasn't just that factor. It was with Ralph Macchio's character in particular, Johnny, where he said, yeah, he's tired of the, living, divided like this, and his home life is also bad as well because he's being abused. And of course, on top of that, he got jumped by one of the socials that punched him in the face, which ironically was the one who he had killed. But, you know, I could relate to this, and I know a lot of people can also relate to it. I know some of the ones that grew up in the gang life. I remember MC8. Um, I think he played Stacy on Menace to Society. I might have the wrong character, but I remember him stating on Vlad TV. He said the shitty thing about the gang life is that I never chose this. I never really glorified it like everybody else. If you just so happen to be born in a certain neighborhood or from a certain neighborhood, you're gonna get fucked with every day by another rival or gang, even if you're not even trying to do anything. And that's the sad part because it's not just in LA. I heard in Chicago, certain parts of Chicago and Detroit, and I think even in New York, hell, even some places here in Georgia. I remember my ex-girlfriend at the time, it was the same thing. She wore the wrong bandana one day, and another time we were going to the masquerade, and we were going to meet up, and she had to walk through a certain neighborhood, and she indirectly got threatened by someone flashing a gun in her waist. At least that's what she told me. But regardless if she was lying or not, I wouldn't be shocked. But again, after seeing this version, this is the actual complete novel where in the original theatrical release they had cut some of the scenes. One scene in particular was when they're at the church and Pony Boy makes his hair blonde, and I think Johnny washes all the grease out and cuts it. And I couldn't get why because it's on the deleted scenes here. But again, if you see the original movie, they left that cut, that scene in there. And he had said, it's like wearing a Halloween disguise that you can't take off. And I couldn't get to the reason why. And in the other scene they had cut in this version, if you see it, is when they were playing, poker to pass the time, and they were using cigarettes as currency. And I think Johnny won like a hand, and he won like a massive ton of cigarettes. They had cut that out too. And again, I really couldn't understand why. And but I really think this is more of a cash grab because in the original version it had different music. And if you watch this version, apparently the music's in a lot of the scenes were different. And I think they did that to keep on the upbeat of the novel. And I have the novel somewhere. I'm going to actually hopefully read it eventually if I do find it. Only read like a bits and pieces of certain scenes. I know I had read the book before I saw this version of the movie, and the beginning was definitely different. In the original version, it started off with I think like chapter 2 where they meet Dallas, played by Matt Dillon, at the movie house. But in the original version, they had like all the characters introduced at a different reason to why, Thomas C. Howell was at the movie house. He loves movies. He's very good at language arts and stuff like that. And he, of course, he's writing, oh yeah, take that back. When he states the opening, when I walked out of the movie house, that did was the first scene in the book and in the movie. But then right after that, in the original cut, it went right to Matt Dillon and doing an introduction of those characters. Now in this one, it's Pony Boy being harassed by the socials walking down the street, and then he gets jumped, and then the rest of the greasers are introduced and they come in and then they start fighting, and then that's how each one are introduced bit by bit. And there's even more additional deleted scenes Like there's one scene where Dallas he talks about later in the movie how he didn't want Ponyboy to go to jail, and it showed the scene where he got out of prison, and they had a different narration introduction as well in the beginning of the movie, like how I think in the book how Ponyboy had described all of his friends and the situation that was going at hand in between all of them. Well, and mainly in describing like Dallas's character, his vivid description, they left that out, but it was more like a narration situation. But pretty much, this is a good movie, to show like middle schoolers, say like in eighth grade. Um, hope I'm kind of curious to know if there would be a new coming of age tale that would be popular, with preteens and teens, because that's how the movie really got made. And the funny thing, if you really think about it, I like this version, and it is very sad because, Johnny Cade, what really hit me the most, and I know a lot of, you know, um, kids, and I even befriended a kid that had died, I was very young, and it was sad thinking about that because I don't, he had so much of his life to live, but when he stated that, he never left his neighborhood. The only time he been out of the neighborhood is when they went to, you know, um, Windricksville, which was that church. And, Johnny's character does end up dying, saving, some kids. And even he had stated that saving those kids meant a lot because they have more to live for. And he regretted, because I really, in a way, I believe Johnny kind of had suicidal tendencies because of his home life and him being abused and of course being harassed by the socials, and then you know him and Ponyboy finding a little bit of peace being outside of the neighborhood, and then after talking with Dallas saying that they may not go to jail because the whole situation was in self-defense and the guys were drunk and everything started to look good, and then they end up saving those kids and they become heroes. But it's bittersweet for Johnny because a burning 2x4 had hit him. I think even bigger than that, messed up his back, and he most likely wouldn't walk again. And he pretty much ended up dying. And I think they were saying like when the kids that got Francis Ford Coppola to do the movie, they were stating that even when the teacher was reading them the story, even she started crying because it is a sad thing, a 16-year-old, let alone a kid younger, talking about death and indirectly accepting it. And it is a very traumatic thing. There was another similar scene in like Final Fantasy where Aki said the same thing about a 7-year-old who was dying of like leukemia, and it was heartbreaking, And even I was thinking, eventually, if I become famous or not, going to a kid's hospital and like comforting them because, I had an aunt that had cancer, and seeing those kids who are sick, and it's traumatic to me of a kid knowing what death is and accepting it because, you know, as a human race, we're the only ones that really fully know that we're going to die. Being killed is one thing, but if we're not killed, we know that our life expectancy is going to expire at some time in age, and then we're going to die off. We're the only species that's fully aware of that. So, just having that going through your mind every day is like, damn, but, you just live and you grow old and you try to teach the next generation the best way you can. So a part of you can live through them. And that's pretty much what I believe what this whole life is about. But, again, it is one of my favorite, teen like movies. I know The Breakfast Club was another one. And, even though I don't have that one, unless you guys want me to talk about it and review it. And, it's probably a few more I can't really think of, but, the funny thing of how a lot of these movies are culturally different, they're still yet the same, because when I review Boys in the Hood, it's a little bit of the same thing. The only difference, it hits more to home because I've seen both black and white perspectives on it, so, and also the only main difference, of course, or an additional difference is the era too. But, hopefully this is one movie they would never remake because to me it's like perfect. It caught the time and feel and everything, and it didn't weigh heavy much on the era that much. It had moments where it did make you think, oh yeah, this is the '60s, and also in a little bit of a addition. Also, what I liked about this was the relationship between um, Daryl, Soda Pop, and Ponyboy. In the original cut, they didn't have that much relationship between the three brothers, but it was a little bit more. We got a little bit more on this, and in the story, the parents are dead. I think Daryl's like the oldest one. He's 20, so the court, you know, technically, Soda Pop and Ponyboy, that's their legal guardian. And what I noticed is that Ponyboy, no, not Ponyboy, Soda Pop was pretty much the glue and the nucleus that kept, you know, Ponyboy and Daryl, the whole thing circulated, together. And I think Rob Lowe had asked S.E. Hinton, more about the character, and S.E. Hinton said in a heartbreaking moment, Soda Pop actually dies. He got drafted in Vietnam, and I don't know if she put that in any of the other stories because she's written other books that take place in the same universe as The Outsiders. I can't remember the names of them off the top of my head, but I know Ponyboy appears in one of the other stories, but of course it's like a cool thing, like it's like a cameo thing, but it's not to take away from the story that's being told. Um, I'm really mad now. I can't remember those titles because I did look them up a while back, and now I'm doing a review a little bit later, and they literally slipped my mind. But um, it would just kind of curious to see, what happened, after that fact, of him dying in Vietnam. How did Ponyboy and Daryl deal with it? But it's pretty much all I have to say. What was going on through my mind? I had a lot more heavier things that I kind of remembered watching this. I think like 2 weeks ago, but I think I got everything. Again, comment boxes are always open. And I will talk to you guys later on next review. Peace.